So upon getting back from not getting a tan at all in Spain, I learned that they nerfed Mccree and WidowMaker. Now these were completely necessary nerfs. I think that in a great sense they both needed to be nerfed. They could do stupid shit sometimes shit that they shouldn't even be able to do, but they could do it anyway, and I'm completely glad that they've been kind of nullified in a sense to kind of push you towards a more difficult character rather than what they were. I'll get onto WidowMaker later, but first Mccree, I called the fuck out of that. Oh my god, I called that. Before I went, I was like, yeah, they're gonna nerf Mccree. Game behind Mccree's flashbang, which in fairness, Mccree's flashbang is broken, and the reason I'm not making a video about that is because, to be honest, I'm convinced they're going to nerf that shit. I might make one in the future if they don't nerf that shit, but for now, I'm convinced they will. So I'm just gonna say that I called the shit out of that. And I'm going to say that before he was nerfed to this sense, he was overused in competitive to say the least. I've been keeping up competitive, watching the occasional game, kind of seeing if it's kind of growing the way it should be. And I've noticed that there is an awful lot of people running 2 Mccree in their team. Rather than running any other offensive class, they just run 2 Mccree. Nobody should be running 2 of that class that often. Like legitimately, they would not pick any other offensive class for the long term except for Mccree. There was just constant high noons going on in the entire game because of how many kills they were getting, say pretty much single-handedly. Mccree before the nerf was fucking stupid. I believe that they should have nerfed the flashbang, but to be honest, nerfing the alternate fire is almost as good. They basically nerfed the alternate fire so the base damage has been decreased from 75 to 40 from a fan the hammer. So in saying that, fan the hammers are no longer as good. So you can't two-shot tanks anymore, especially Reinhardt's, because people didn't seem to know that they were like, oh, Reinhardt's a counter to Mccree, they can just block the flashbang. But the thing is, you can throw the flashbang above the shield and then just 2 fan the hammer them and then they're dead. Now it's a bit more fair because even with 2 fan the hammers, you will not kill a Reinhardt. Now, as of now, no tank can be killed by the double fan the hammer, which is the fan the hammer front row fan the hammer combo. No one can die from that anymore. That is a good day for tanks. Tanks are fine now. They no longer have to hide under their beds from Mccree's. Everything's good. As well as that, they slowed down the reload slightly. The reload thing wasn't as big a deal. I don't really care about the reload. There wasn't a big a deal. The only thing that really needed to be nerfed was his ability to completely mow down tanks whenever he wanted to. That was just absurd. Like, there was so much shenanigans going on, just mowing down multiple tanks at a time. And really, Mccree's tend to get away with it. In saying that, I doubt Mccree will lose use at all, even despite the fact that he's been nerfed. I think people will still try and use him because he's still a really fun character to play. The only thing that's going to change is he's no longer OP as fuck. He can still one-shot a Tracer and 200 health characters if you actually aim the fan the hammer properly, which if you miss the fan the hammer, then you're kind of a disappointment in life because you shouldn't be able to miss something that simple. This nerf will probably change how much people use him in the competitive scene and all those different things that are popping up because of how much less viable he is towards tanks, and they'll probably change the meta slightly away from Mccree because of how not great he is. Because at this point, it's kind of hard to know where the meta is going to go, but I don't think it's going to be pushing towards Mccree at this point, considering the main reason everyone used him was because the double tank combo was really popular, and now the Mccree counter for that is gone. So maybe tanks will be the next big thing that everyone will pick, and everyone will just think, oh my god, this is fucking OP. Anyway, moving on from Mccree, getting on to WidowMaker. WidowMaker's wasn't as completely necessary. Yes, it was necessary, it needed to happen, but Mccree's needed to happen as soon as possible. They needed to fix that shit. Now that they have, Widowmaker's is a nice side nerf they did, because Widowmaker was OP. You could shoot a Pharah in the leg and you'd kill her, almost always. It was pretty dumb. Basically the way they changed him was, they changed it so that your damage is greatly nerfed in scoped in mode, and it's greatly nerfed in scoped out mode. So the assault rifle no longer does as much damage, and body shots with the sniper rifle no longer do as much damage. The thing that does the most damage now, which they've kind of tweaked it to make it as such, is that headshots do the same damage as they did before. So headshots are an instant kill for like half the classes in the game, at least. A large majority of the classes die to headshots, especially Pharahs. So in saying that, I don't think Widowmaker's any worse. A bit like, I don't think it's like Mccree where he's actually worse after this. I think Widowmaker is just more difficult to play now because you have to get headshots. She's like the sniper in TF2. She's no longer like the sniper in Call of Duty where you can shoot them in the foot and they die, or maybe the AWP in Counter-Strike. It's now more skill-based because you have to get the head. Granted, this is still quite easy for tank characters, but it's much more difficult than shooting them in the chest, which, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, whenever I played Widow, I kinda did that a lot. On a side note, they also nerfed Widowmaker's ult, because Widowmaker's ult charged up way faster than most other ults. And considering the actual effect it had in the game, I mean, knowing where the entire enemy team is a really valuable thing to have. And if you were a good Widow that got a few kills each life, you were getting that shit every single life. It was pretty dumb if you were a good Widow, like if you kill a lot of people. I've played with people who are like, you know, legendary rank Widows, and they just constantly get their ult. That's changed slightly. Now it's slightly slower. Now it's not as slow as some of the other way slower ults. It's definitely not as fast as it was. It definitely takes a lot more work and a lot more time to actually get the ult. So you don't constantly seem to have a wall ball all the time if you're playing with a really good Widowmaker. I don't think this nerf really made Widowmaker any worse. I think it just made her more difficult to play. Now this is different from Mccree, where Mccree is just full on a little bit worse. He's not as good as he used to be. Widowmaker is just more difficult because you have to headshot more often and you have to be more patient and more well timed with your ults so that it actually means something for your team. In saying that, both these nerfs are really good. I like the nerfs. I think they're really well placed. They're really well timed in the kind of timeline of Overwatch because it's just kind of beginning to peek its head up in the whole competitive scene. So people are beginning to kind of actually are starting to make team comps and test around, and getting rid of Mccree just before team comps have really become important with teams was a good idea because it kind of makes more diversity in the game. And for Widow, I think this will lead to more impressive Widows. I think people who play the game as Widow now, or the professional players who play Widow, will definitely be much more impressive to watch because they have to headshot all the time, which is way fucking cooler to watch. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. Both of these nerfs were good. I like both these nerfs, and to be honest, the game is getting increasingly more and more balanced that I'm kind of running out of things to actually complain about being OP. There are some really good ults and shit in this game, but it's getting less and less OP the more I come back to this game, which is a great sign for an FPS. Anyway, I hope you liked the nerfs yourself. If you didn't, tell me in the comments, or feel free to like this video. I'll see you next time and have a nice day.